Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony, the Great Rivardo. And today we got a special episode just breaking down the schedule leaks for the 2021 regular season. I'm super hyped. You're super hyped. Anthony's super hyped. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Check out that 20% off discount code in the description below on YouTube. Really appreciate all the support you guys are offering. And that little code right there means more future elite content. So really help us out there. We really appreciate it. And as always, we're here to give you guys elite level stuff. And today's episode, obviously, schedule leaks. And we have a lot of them. Basically, the entire Giants schedule has been leaked except for a couple weeks. There's been a few confidential leaks, but the Patriots, the Jets, I think even the Saints had their schedule leaked completely. So now we have the Giants, and we're sitting here like, who are they playing in a couple of these weeks? But we know the first couple of games already. And let's dive right into it. But Anthony, before we do that, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm excited just to see so much excitement around football, right? You know, this is the dead of the offseason. There's nothing going on. But now we're getting all these schedule leaks, and it's really exciting just refreshing Twitter. And every few seconds, you're just like, who are the Giants playing in Week 11? Who are they playing in Week 10? You know, you're just trying to find out what that next game that's going to leak on the schedule is. So far, the majority of the games have leaked, so I guess we'll discuss all of those, and then we'll swing back around later on today with an update on the full schedule once it's officially announced. That'll be exciting for sure. And then we'll do record predictions and everything like that. But for now, we'll focus on the games that have leaked, and there's a lot of intriguing matchups as well to discuss, and a few key games to keep an eye on, because if you're trying to go to a few games this year, this is what you want to know. When are these games? And that's what I'm trying to keep an eye on as well, because I'm trying to go to at least 2 to 4 games this year. So pretty excited about that. So ready to dive into it, Alex.
Absolutely. And this, everyone wanted the Eagles. It's usually Dallas. But this year, a little bit different of a week one matchup. We have the Denver Broncos at 4:25 p.m., the afternoon slot. And I'll tell you what, I actually think this is going to be a damn good game, because the Giants, obviously, we know, retooled a lot of their offense. Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, John Ross, Kyle Rudolph, really getting Saquon back. So many different players on their way to help support Daniel Jones. That's the primary goal here. And Denver might have the best secondary in football next season with Patrick Surtain, Kyle Fuller, and just a ton of really great talent. They have Ronald Darby as well. Just a phenomenal secondary. And if Surtain ends up panning out week one, it's going to be a tough challenge, because handling Kadarius Toney in the slot, or even Golladay out wide, not easy. And Sterling Shepard, one of the better route runners you can find in this league. So I'm excited to see what the Giants roll out here in terms of schematics, the vision, the downfield-oriented approach that we estimate they will have. And also, Denver has some 6 safeties in Justin Simmons as well. So really great talent back there. They have a strong defensive line, of course. And the Giants' offense is going to need to show up and play week one. But they do have some quarterback controversy with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. Hopefully, Drew Lock is a starter. Guys throws interceptions more than Anthony contracts Ebola in 1 week. So pretty exciting stuff there. I'm going to ride with the Ebola jokes. Anthony's getting tired of them, I can tell. But this is an interesting one. I think this is a pretty good matchup for the Giants to really start off the season against an elite level defense and have some success. Establish their offense, really make sure that scheme is looking up and positive, and really establish those base concepts and really put it to the test. Put that practice and in-person training that they will finally have post-COVID to the test. So I'm excited about this week one matchup against Denver, Anthony. How do you envision this going? And do you think this is going to be a tough one for the Giants?
I don't know if it's going to necessarily be a tough one, but it shouldn't be an easy one. It should have some level of difficulty, because the Denver Broncos do have a good defense. But if you look at the offensive side of the ball, I do love Jerry Jeudy. I like KJ Hamler a lot. I think they've got good players in the backfield as well. But the quarterback position is, that's the sign for any team. That's what decides whether or not you are a good team, is whether or not you have a good quarterback. They have a lot of uncertainty at quarterback right now. They have Drew Lock as their starter last year, and now they have Teddy Bridgewater competing to be the starter this year. I think ultimately Teddy Bridgewater will win that job, but I think it's going to come down to which offense will play better in week one. And I got to say, I think the Giants just loaded up on so much talent this year. Daniel Jones, I expect him to be better. I'm not too confident in Pat Shurmur and Teddy Bridgewater duo. I think the Giants should be able to squeak that one out. I think, just based on offense, which offense is going to be better. And I'm hoping that the Giants offense doesn't let us down this year. They kind of let us down last year. But to be honest, we all just overestimated and had way too much confidence in the Giants offense last year. They clearly were not as good as we thought they were on paper. This year, though, we really spent a lot of money. They're good on paper. Now we got to make sure they're good on the field. So I think that's going to be the test week one, see what kind of start we can get off to, see whether or not we get off to a hot or a cold start. And I think the Denver Broncos are going to be a good matchup for us. I wasn't too surprised that we weren't facing a divisional rival because last year we didn't. We faced the Pittsburgh Steelers on prime time. So I thought it could be, a realistic thing for the Giants to just face another AFC opponent and get one of those out of the way like they did last year. And so I think the Denver Broncos make a lot of sense if you're going to face a AFC opponent. We have 5 of those on the schedule now. It used to only be 4 per year. Now it's 5 with the 18-game schedule, or 18-week schedule, 17 games. So I think that, Broncos is an intriguing matchup, but ultimately it's one that the Giants should be able to win.
Yeah, I agree, and I just got some big news on Twitter. We'll get to that in a little bit, some interesting breakdown there. But now, while you're probably watching this, you already know this, but it really just hit me right now, so I'm excited about it. Week 2, Washington, Thursday Night Football. Get that Thursday night crap out of the way early. I don't like Thursday Night Football games. I like my Sunday sitting on the couch, playing with fantasy, and enjoying my Sunday absolutely doing nothing like a potato. That is why I like on Sundays, Thursday Night Football. I love watching other teams, but when the Giants, and you get to Sunday and you don't get to watch the Giants, and it's kind of annoying. So I'm happy to get that Thursday Night Football out of the way early. It's also away, so you're not going to be affected by a home game there. So, you can go to more home games and not have it be on Thursday and have work the next day. So you can have actual fun, although you do have work on Mondays. It's just a little bit easier when it's on a Sunday and then a Thursday. So really interesting there. Washington, big experiment at quarterback with Ryan Fitzpatrick. The guy gets benched every year at some point for some inconsistencies. The guy goes hard into tackles. He leads with his head. Kind of a foolish player at times, but also a Harvard graduate, so the guy's smart. And they're really banking a lot on Ryan Fitzpatrick being their guy this year. They don't really have much of a backup. I know they have Kyle Allen, I think, but he also got injured pretty badly last year, and he hasn't been proven to be a starter, in any capacity. So I think Washington's taking a big risk with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but their defense is legit. Had one of the best passing defenses last year. Good run defense, great defensive line. Giants' offensive line is going to need to hold up if they want to win this game. Of course, the Giants have had their number for the past couple years, so I think they added a couple of tools on offense that will continue that trend. But I think this is another tough one. Washington's getting better. I would even argue they're neck and neck with the Giants and Dallas at the top of that division. So we'll see how that one goes, Anthony. How do you think this game unfolds? Do you think Washington is a formidable opponent?
I absolutely do think that they're a formidable opponent. Everything that they've done in the offseason has even made them stronger. I think that they arguably have the best all-around roster in the NFC East. Their defense is really, really good. They've got a few good offensive weapons now. You got Curtis Samuel. You got Diami Brown out of the draft, who I really like. You still got Terry McLaurin, and Antonio Gibson out of the backfield is a pretty good player. And I think that they're pretty solid all around. They just have a stopgap quarterback, which is what everyone's going to hold against them. But I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the quintessential stopgap quarterback. I think he's the best stopgap quarterback you can get because he truly is a starting level quarterback. He is a starter. He's just not an elite starter, a starter that's going to push you to the next level or push you into the playoffs. He'll manage a team. He'll get you around or near the playoffs, but he's not going to be the reason that you get to the playoffs. And that's what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. But their defense will be the reason that they get to the playoffs if they do. Their defense is really, really solid. Chase Young in his second season. You got a few other guys on that defensive line, linebackers. I mean, they've got talent all over the place. They still got Landon Collins, and they had another safety. I'm forgetting his name, but they're pretty excited about. They have a lot of talent defensively. But one thing at the end of the day that we hold our hats to about Daniel Jones is that he dominates Washington every time he plays them, right? I don't think he's ever lost to Washington, but he's lost to just about every other opponent that he's faced. But he has beat Washington every single time, and I think that's exciting. Thursday Night Football, I love these primetime games for the divisional rivalry matchups because they just make it even more intense and even more exciting. So I think that's going to be cool. Week 1, you got normal 4:25 Sunday game, and then you just hop right back into the action 4 days later with a Thursday Night Football game. I think that's really exciting. After that drought, you just jump into it with 2 football games in a really short time period. I think that's super, super exciting for Giants fans. And I think Thursday Night Football on the road against Washington, I'm going to take Daniel Jones on that one. I'm going to predict that he gets that win, and I think that's going to be a big matchup for him to set the tone for the rest of the season, get that Washington game that he's so comfortable with out of the way early, get him into his rhythm early. I think that will be huge for Daniel Jones. And like I said, that's a really good team. They just don't have all their pieces put together, especially not at the quarterback position. But again, I think week 1, week 2, it's going to be a battle of the quarterbacks. Whichever quarterback plays better, I think this season is largely going to be predicated on how Daniel Jones plays. And as long as he plays well against Washington like he usually does in week 2, I don't see a reason why we lose that one. So I'm excited. I do see a realistic 2-0 start.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to say the same thing with the quarterback situation because Washington usually falters because of that quarterback spot and having weaknesses there specifically, with Alex Smith last year, Kyle Allen, they just couldn't push them over the edge. And I think that was a big reason they failed to beat the Giants. And they didn't really do much to upgrade that spot unless Aaron Rodgers ends up there, Deshaun Watson or whatever. I don't anticipate that at all. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, another stopgap guy, another guy who, normally gets benched for whatever reason. Miami went back and forth between him and Tua last year. So who knows what Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to do. But let's move on to week 3 and 4. Week 3, home versus Atlanta and Kyle Pitts. We all know Kyle Pitts going to get a first good look at him early on in the season, see what he's capable of. We have the secondary and defensive backs to get it done against him and shut him down. Atlanta's also trying to get rid of Julio Jones, so they won't have probably their biggest wide receiving threat. And if he goes, I mean, they're pretty much guaranteed to get rid of him. His cap hit's way too high. They don't have the money for him anymore. And he has had some injury, so if he moves on, Giants will walk into that game a lot more comfortable than before, with Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts, rather than Julio, Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley. That's a really dangerous trio of pass catchers. So hopefully Julio Jones is gone by then. We'll see what happens, and we'll keep monitoring that. Week 4, and Anthony, I'll let you talk about Atlanta, and then the week 4. Week 4 is the Saints at home. Another one that, could be predicated on the quarterback position. They have Jameis Winston there now. So Jameis Winston, Saints, who really knows what they're going to be able to accomplish with him? We know he's pretty much 1-for-1 ratio when it comes to touchdowns and interceptions. The guy is capable of throwing a ton of touchdowns. He had a year to learn behind Drew Brees last season. He could come out a different quarterback. We have no idea. This is really a shot in the dark for the Saints to keep that trend of consistency and quality moving forward, but we will see. The Giants have the secondary to confuse Jameis Winston and bring him back to a preschool level, peewee football. And I think the Giants have a very good chance of winning this game, but their defense needs to play up to par, and their offense needs to play against a very tough Saints defense who has a strong secondary and good linebackers. And DeMario Davis had a sick year last year, so they need to be able to overcome those guys and put some points on the board, Anthony. So what do you think about this Week 3 and Week 4 matchup?
Yeah, week 3 versus Atlanta I think is interesting. I disagree. I think that Julio Jones is there to stay. I don't think that they ultimately make that trade because the dead cap is going to be really high. I know if they wait after June, they can get it done, but still, I just don't think that the benefits, really outweigh the risks of moving on from Julio Jones. I think that's going to be a good matchup because you have two pretty young teams. I think that Atlanta's roster has really kind of fallen apart in recent years as they've tried to rebuild and go a little bit younger, but they're still holding on to their older quarterback, which is where I've seen people on Twitter make the comparison to the 2017, 18, 19 New York Giants with Daniel Jones, with Eli Manning rather. And Matt Ryan would be the Eli Manning in that situation, but I think that Matt Ryan is playing at a much higher level than Eli was towards the tail end of his career personally. But with the Atlanta Falcons, they've got Kyle Pitts. You got to keep that in mind. That's going to be exciting. I want to watch a lot of Kyle Pitts this year, so I'm excited that week 3 I get to watch him play against us. I just hope he doesn't torch us. I just hope he doesn't dominate us. He's going to be tough. But I think this is a situation where the Giants have a really good defense and you've got a really good offense. So it's really going to come down to, who's better on that Sunday, right? Who's better, the Giants defense or Atlanta's offense that consists of Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts. They've always got solid running backs out of the backfield, and they still have Matt Ryan. But then the Giants, they have Adoree Jackson, James Bradbury, Leonard Williams, Blake Martinez, Jabril Peppers. We're stacked on defense. They're stacked on offense. That's what it's going to come down to, which side of the ball plays better for which team. And then versus New Orleans, this is one where I actually don't think this game comes down to an offense. I think this comes down to the Giants' defense, ultimately, because New Orleans' roster is, again, arguably the best in football minus the quarterback position. I think that's really a fair argument. Offensive line is stacked. Receiving core is really good. Running back is one of the best in the league. Defense is really good. Their defensive line, their secondary, everything on that team, they have depth and they have a really talented players at every level. New Orleans is one of the best rosters in football. They just have Jameis Winston starting at quarterback. But one thing about Jameis Winston, he can air the ball out. He can make your offense go for 30 points at a time. We've seen him do that with Tampa Bay. We've seen him throw 30 touchdowns in a season, but also throw 30 interceptions, right? He's a 30 for 30 guy. So we could see him potentially light it up with the Saints this year just because there's so much talent around him and he's got such a great offensive play caller and Sean Payton helping him. So I think this is a one where you look at the Giants defense and you say, okay, you're going to need to step up big and slow down all these playmakers around Jameis Winston, Otherwise, we might be in for a long day if the Giants offense can't keep up. I think this one has a lot of shootout potential if the Giants offense can actually get to a shootout level. Last year, we were not getting to a shootout level with any team. We were relying on our defense far too much. This game does have shootout level just because of how much talent the Saints have on offense, but also I think it's going to come down to the end of the day. If the Giants want to win that game, their defense is going to have to make a couple big plays and get Jameis to turn the ball over a couple times, and that's ultimately their key to success in Week 4.
Yeah, and actually the Saints game is away, so keep that in mind. A little bit more of a difficult situation for the Giants. It's an away game. Reminds me of that Eli Manning versus Breeze game a couple years back when they both had like 6 touchdown passes, and like Dwayne Harris caught that crazy pass in the end zone to tie it up at the end. And then, of course, New Orleans went down the field and hit a field goal, which is pretty much like every loss the Giants have in the past that are close. But let's move on. Week 5. It's still undetermined, but I've seen that they're going to play Dallas there away at AT&T. So that would be a big, first matchup for the Giants against a divisional opponent, aside from Washington. And then, that first big matchup against Dallas is always anticipated. We always want to see that. Dak Prescott coming back. They have their offensive weapons. They drafted Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox. Really interesting little group of defenders there. Their secondary is still kind of patchwork, not much to work with. They got Kelvin Joseph out of Kentucky, but who knows what he's going to be like in year 1. The Giants managed to leapfrog the Eagles and Dallas to land Aaron Robinson at UCF. Stole a little guy from them there. But this is another one, Week 5. I think that might be Dallas, but we'll see. Unconfirmed. And then Week 6, moving on. This is, I'm excited. Rams, Matthew Stafford, Week 6. So that should be a pretty good matchup. I think people might think the Giants should win that game. I think they should too. But never count out Matthew Stafford, man, especially on a team with a good defense and some decent playmakers. I think that Matthew Stafford could be just a great quarterback for the Rams, especially with Sean McVay as his head coach. This is a team I would not look past. I would not underestimate them for the most part, but I think the Rams could be a very tough one for the Giants, especially with a solid defense. They retained Leonard Floyd and Matthew Stafford now, so keep an eye on that one. Week 7, home against the Panthers. Panthers, another pretty tough team. They have Sam Darnold now. So that's going to be interesting to see how they use Sam Darnold if he takes that step forward. Got some playmakers for him. I think that'll be a very good matchup as well. They usually have a pretty decent defense. And the Giants, a couple of good games here in a row, a couple of tough ones, but winnable games. There's a little stretch in the middle here where it's kind of like, okay, they have some tough opponents. Maybe they should beat them. It could go either way, though. This is not as easy of a schedule as some people implied a couple of weeks ago. When you're looking at it, the only reason that they were on the lower tier, the lower end of the strength of schedule list is because of how bad the NFC East was last year. So the value of those teams brought them down tremendously. But Washington and Dallas are not going to be bad this year at all. Eagles will probably be middling, depending on their quarterback situation. So this schedule is so far looking tougher than you would imagine, but winnable games here, Anthony. So what are you thinking about Dallas potentially at 5, Rams at 6, Panthers at 7, and Week 8? I'm so excited to break that one. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think that you look at weeks 1 through 4 and you say those are pretty winnable. All those games, you think the Giants have a real good chance. I think weeks 6 through 9, you say these are really tough games for the Giants. I think that's a really tough stretch where you could potentially see them drop 4 in a row if things get bad. This is the scary part of the schedule to me. And then, of course, the second half of the schedule, we'll get into that, but that one's more predicated on the division rivals. But that 6 through 9, the Rams, I think, still another team that has one of the best rosters of football. They just don't have a lot of depth, and they have holes here and there that really hold them back, as it did last season. What held them back last season was the quarterback position. Jared Goff just wasn't cutting it for Sean McVay. They made the aggressive move to go out there and get Matt Stafford, who I think is still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think this is a team that should be able to make it back to the deep end of the playoffs this year, the Los Angeles Rams. So I think that's a tough matchup for the Giants. Still got Aaron Donald and a really good secondary with Jalen Ramsey, and a lot of other good players on that defense, as well as a really good offense that still has Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and now Matt Stafford. And Andrew Whitworth as their left tackle, right? So this is a really good team, and I think that the Giants might struggle a lot against them in Week 6. But, of course, then you go Week 7 versus the Panthers. I'm really excited to face Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has some weapons. I'm actually pulling for Sam Darnold and rooting for him this year. But, that's going to be a really fun matchup where I think, you could see the Panthers take a big step forward this year in terms of their young team and their development. But ultimately, I think that's kind of a 50-50. Giants could win, Panthers could win. I think the Giants have a pretty good chance against them. But then after that, I'll let you break your Week 8 matchup that you're so excited for. But that one's going to be a tough one.
Oh, yeah. Tough one, guys. Week 8, prime time, Monday night, Kansas City Chiefs against the Giants. This is an away game at Arrowhead. Holy hell, the Giants are going to have a tough one on their hands. Unless Patrick Mahomes disappears like the Magic Man, I have no idea how, they're going to keep up with that offense. Of course, you got a great defense, though. The Giants need to get after Patrick Mahomes. You saw what happened in the Super Bowl. If you can get past the offensive line and get to Pat Mahomes, you can win against Kansas City. You can do it. The Giants have Azeez Ojulari. They have Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, some solid guys that can rush the passer, and we need them to have their best game of the season against Kansas City on primetime Monday night. I think this is obviously going to be one of the most difficult games for the Giants, but I'm not going to rule out a win. I'm not going to say that they're going to get destroyed. I think the Giants have a better offense based on the tools that they did add this offseason. But that's a huge one right there. So I'm so excited for that game. Week 9, I'm seeing home versus Las Vegas. Vegas was really competitive last year. They had some pretty good games and then duds in other games. They're kind of a 50-50. You never know which Vegas team you're going to get with that Gruden-led team. So we'll see how that one goes, but I think another winnable game against Las Vegas. That's at home as well, so that's going to be an interesting one. I think that one might be a fun one to go to. 10 is a bye week, so you got nothing on 10. Right smack in the middle of the season for the most part. I like that for the Giants to get a little bit of a rest there. And then 11, I'm going to let Anthony catch up with me after this one. 11 at Tampa Bay is what I'm seeing. At Tampa Bay, another prime time game. So Giants have 2 prime time games, both of them against Super Bowl teams. So tough for the Giants in that category. But hell, I'll take the primetime games. I want to be on the biggest stage. I want our players balling out at the biggest stage because when it comes postseason, they're all freaking primetime games. You need to be playing at the highest level. So I want them engaged, playing good football against great teams when it matters most on the biggest stage. That's what we want. And I think the Giants might have gotten their wish this time around.
Alex, have you ever been to a primetime game?
I haven't been to a primetime game, but I'll tell you, I get rowdy by myself. Or with friends anyway.
Dude, primetime games are so fun. Week 11 versus Tampa, if that is the case and it's on prime time, that's confirmed. Art Stapleton said that we're playing Kansas City and Tampa Bay on prime time. I'll be there for Week 11 at Tampa Bay. I cannot wait for another primetime game. Last time I went to a primetime game was against the Miami Dolphins, 2015. Odell Beckham Jr. had 3 touchdowns. Eli Manning had like 3 incompletions. It was an awesome game for the Giants. But yeah, Week 8 versus Kansas City on the road, that's going to be a really tough matchup on primetime. Of course, like Alex said, the key is to disrupt Patrick Mahomes, get a lot of pressure. This could be the Azeez Ojulari breakout game. But they did make a lot of improvements on their offensive line in the NFL draft, so we'll see how that goes for them. Then you got the Raiders. I think that one is one that could surprise you. I think the Raiders, on paper, were probably a better roster, but the Raiders seem to play up to competition very frequently or play down to competition. We saw that a lot last year. They played up to the Chiefs. They played down to the Jets, right? That's the Raiders in a nutshell. So they're a game that you really can't predict. That's one where you just look at the team and you say, they got holes, but they got good players. And hopefully the Giants are just a better team on that given Sunday against the Raiders since they're just so random. Week 10, nice bye week. I think that's really good, kind of right in the middle of the schedule. Not too early, not too late. Give the Giants a rest, kind of split the season in half. Week 11, if that is the one versus Tampa, I'm really excited for that. I will be there for that regardless. And I do think that this is a game based on last season that the Giants can win. We saw them play them last year. We saw the Giants should have won that game, but ultimately Daniel Jones had a really rough night, and we had a kind of no-call pass interference at the end of the game, so the Giants did lose that game by a mere 2 points, but I still feel confident that the Giants could win that game this season, and I really hope so because I'm going to be there for it, and that would be really, really hype if I was in person with the Giants beating the Buccaneers on primetime. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah, and we'll speed through the next couple here because there's a couple that are still a little unconfirmed. 12, home versus Philadelphia. That one has been confirmed. And that's going to be a fun one. Always fun to play Philly at home. We have our home fans in the stadium getting rowdy and crazy. I love it. Energy is going to be bubbling. It's going to be buzzing. Hyped to watch that game. And get excited with the Giants fans. 13 and 14 are still undetermined. I am seeing Dolphins 13 and Chargers 14. I don't know if that is true, so we'll keep an eye on that as the day goes on. 15 is the Cowboys I'm seeing as well. So 15 got the Dallas Cowboys at home. They had a away game early in the year in week 5, I believe, at AT&T Stadium, and now you have at home in week 15. So that's going to be an exciting one. Always fun to play Dallas. And then 16, you got at Philadelphia in the cold. That's going to be a hostile environment in the cold at Philly week 16 as the playoffs are nearing. That's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm excited about that. 17, you got at Chicago is what I'm seeing. Another chilly game in Chicago. We know that football's like a rock at that time of the year. So hopefully they'll be able to push through that one and take down Chicago because we know how much that draft capital is going to be worth next season. We want Kayvon Thibodeau, and we want Chicago to be 0-16 or 0-17 and give us that first pick. So hopefully they'll be losing out all the time. And then 18, finishing up the season, home versus Washington. Giants always find a way to play Washington the last 2 games or the last game. And hopefully, they'll be locked into a playoff spot by then. We'll be walking into the sunset and getting ready for some postseason football and cracking a beer and having some fun, Anthony. So what are you thinking about these last couple games, starting at week 12, home versus Philadelphia?
Yeah, I like how the schedule's set up. First, half of the season, you're kind of playing those random teams that you don't see too often. Second half of the schedule, you're seeing a lot of divisional teams, a lot of rivalry teams, including Chicago. That's like a long-time rivalry, right? Where they're not in our division, but we've been playing them for almost 100 years now, and it's just a rivalry in itself. That's another game that I am planning on going to. I'm planning on going to Chicago to play the Giants, or to watch them play the Giants. Really unfortunate that that's in such a deep part of the winter because I'm going to be freezing my balls off and I'm not ready for that. But it'll be fun. I'll be watching the Giants with some friends in Chicago. It'll be a good time. So I think, you got those division rivalry games. Those are obviously the most important games on the schedule at all times. I like playing Washington to end the season because I do think that potentially those could be the 2 teams playing to get in to win the division. I think Washington versus New York in week 18 could be whoever wins that makes it to the playoffs, who wins the division. So I think that's a really exciting matchup right there. Well done by the NFL scheduling that one. I'm going to assume that it's going to be Dallas versus Philadelphia as well in week 18. So hopefully you get one of those final games, those division rivalry games that puts them into the playoffs. And then, of course, at Philadelphia, week 16, I do want to touch on that one because I think that one's really exciting. That's one that we're long awaiting, right? For the Giants to finally return to Philadelphia after everything that's gone down with the Giants fan base and the Eagles fan base within the past, off season and a little before that as the season came to a close there. And the Eagles decided to do the despicable thing of tanking at the end of the season. They decided to tank so the Giants couldn't make the playoffs. And then, of course, they did that draft day trade. We have a lot of hatred for Philadelphia, and we're going to march into Philadelphia in week 16 and hopefully punch them in the teeth and knock all their teeth out. So that's what I'm excited for week 16, and really I'm just excited for all those divisional matchups towards the end of the season. I think that's the home stretch. That's when you want all those intense divisional matchup games. I think the schedule was really put together really well by the NFL. I'm very impressed by it. I think it's going to have a theatric closing, and I'm very excited to get this season started. And man, I just can't wait to see what the Giants could do this year. I think this is a really favorable schedule for them. I think they should be able to win a fair amount of games and make the playoffs. And yeah, that's my expectations. They're pretty high this year, and I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I want them to be playing better teams. I want them to be beating better teams because that means in the postseason, we know they can beat those teams. So I like these 2 primetime games against Super Bowl teams. It's going to be tough, but you got to beat the best to be the best. And that's how I see the Giants, kind of iron sharpens iron type of ordeal. But hopefully they come out victorious, guys. But that's a little breakdown of what we're seeing in terms of the schedule. Tampa Bay week 11 has been confirmed now, so that's a good one. A lot of these are pretty much confirmed. We'll see any changes at 8 o'clock tonight, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe below on YouTube. Turn on notifications for Apple, Spotify, and make sure to use that discount code for Manscaped and trim those hedges, my friends. Very exciting stuff. We'll be doing another couple of funny gimmicks on that end in a couple days, but have an awesome rest of your week. Enjoy this Wednesday, my friends, and we'll talk about more about this schedule tomorrow. See you later.